The auditorium lights shimmered like distant stars, each one flickering against the restless buzz of a waiting crowd. It was the final night of auditions, a place where dreams were either born or quietly buried. Backstage, a thin boy with trembling hands held a cracked guitar close to his chest, as if it were the only thing keeping him alive. His name was Eli Carter, 14 years old, from a small town most people couldn't even find on a map. His shoes were too big, his jeans faded, but his eyes carried something fierce, a kind of hope that refused to die. While others rehearsed confidently, laughing with their families and coaches, Eli stood alone near the dim corridor, whispering a silent prayer under his breath. He wasn't here to win fame or applause. He was here for something deeper, something only his heart could understand. The memory of his late father's voice echoed in his mind. Sing, Eli. Don't sing for the world. Sing for the truth inside you. That truth was all he had left. Moments earlier, one of the producers had looked at him and frowned, asking if he was sure he wanted to sing Hotel California. It wasn't a song kids his age usually chose. Too old, too complex, too deep. But Eli had smiled, clutching the neck of his guitar a little tighter. "It's my dad's favorite," he said softly. "It's the only song I know by heart." What the producer didn't know was that Eli had learned the song not from a teacher or a YouTube tutorial, but from his father's humming every night after long shifts at the auto shop, when music was the only thing that softened the tiredness in his voice. Those nights were gone now, but the song still lived inside him, breathing quietly like an ember waiting to burn. When Eli's name was called, he stepped into the blinding light. The audience's chatter dimmed as the spotlight framed his small figure standing in the center of the grand stage. 3 judges sat in their glittering chairs, each with the practiced look of people who had seen it all before, the confident, the nervous, the forgettable. One of them, a sharp-eyed woman in a silver blazer, leaned toward her mic and said, "Go ahead, sweetheart. Show us what you've got." Eli took a deep breath. The first strum was shaky, his fingers brushing across the strings like he was touching glass. The crowd murmured. Someone coughed. But then something shifted. The next chord came out clear, warm, and hauntingly familiar. And when his voice followed, and soft, husky, trembling, the room fell silent. It wasn't the kind of perfect, trained voice they expected from a contestant. It was raw, pure, and full of something heartbreakingly human. He sang the lyrics like he'd lived every word. "You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave." Somewhere in the middle rows, a woman clutched her chest, whispering, "Oh my God!" And even one of the camera crew paused, forgetting to move. The silver blazer judge's expression softened. Eli wasn't performing anymore. He was remembering. Each note carried the weight of nights spent under a leaky roof, of promises made and broken, of a boy who grew up too fast because life didn't wait. And then, just as the final chorus neared, his voice cracked, not from fear but from truth. A hush rippled through the auditorium, that sacred kind of silence when everyone feels something at the same time. He wiped a tear quickly, strumming through the pain, and finished with a soft whisper. "Such a lovely place." The guitar string snapped. The last note hung in the air, fragile as glass, and broke. For a long, eternal second, no one moved. Then a sound, and the sound of one clap, broke the silence. Then another. And another. Within moments, the crowd was on its feet, clapping, shouting, crying. The judge in silver leaned forward, her eyes glistening. Without hesitation, she slammed her hand on the golden buzzer. Gold confetti exploded like sunlight raining down, spinning around Eli as he stood frozen, tears spilling freely now. He looked up at the ceiling, whispering something no one could hear, but everyone felt. It was gratitude. It was love. It was everything his father ever wanted for him. In that moment, it wasn't about fame or victory. It was about a boy who sang with a soul so pure it reminded everyone what music was really for. To heal, to remember, to make us feel alive again. Long before the golden confetti fell from the ceiling, there was a different kind of stage. A broken porch in a forgotten town. The lights there weren't bright, They flickered from an old street lamp that hummed like an exhausted bee. That's where Eli Carter grew up, in a place where dreams didn't last long enough to be believed in. His father, Jack Carter, worked 2 shifts at the auto shop and still came home humming, grease on his hands, exhaustion in his eyes, but a song always on his lips. "You got to keep a melody in your heart, kid," he used to say. "The world can take a lot from you, but it can't steal what you sing." When Eli was 9, life hit hard. His mother left, chasing her own broken dreams, and his father fell sick, a lung infection that doctors said was treatable if caught early, but they were already too late. Hospital bills piled up faster than paychecks. Jack still smiled, still hummed Hotel California, even when breathing became hard. And then one night, Eli woke up to silence, the kind that feels too heavy, too still. His father was gone. After the funeral, there was nothing but emptiness. No relatives, no savings, no home. The bank took what little they had, and the boy with the cracked guitar learned how to live on his own. Some nights he slept behind the same auto shop where his father once worked, his jacket as a pillow, his stomach empty. But he always kept the guitar close. Music wasn't just sound anymore. It was memory, a way to feel his father again. One cold evening, as he played quietly near the park bench, a woman passing by stopped. She wore a nurse's uniform and carried a paper bag full of groceries. She watched silently for a while before asking softly, "Is that Hotel California?" Eli nodded. "My dad used to sing it," he said. The woman smiled faintly, and for the first time in weeks, he saw warmth in someone's eyes. She gave him half her dinner and told him, "Keep playing, sweetheart. Someone out there needs to hear you." That moment, small as it was, changed something inside him. For the first time since his father's death, he felt seen. Over the months, she'd pass by the same park, always leaving something behind, a sandwich, a thermos of soup, sometimes just a smile. Her name was Mrs. Diaz, and she lived alone after losing her husband in the war. In Eli, she saw her own loneliness reflected, and in her kindness, Eli found the courage to keep singing. Eventually, she offered him a spare room in her small house. Nothing fancy, just a warm bed and a window where sunlight crept in each morning. Every night, Eli would sit by that window, strumming softly while Mrs. Diaz hummed along from the kitchen. She couldn't carry a tune, but she didn't care. For both of them, music had become a form of healing, a way to say what words couldn't. One afternoon, she brought home an old television and turned on a talent show. They watched singers from all over the country chase their dreams. "You should go, Eli," she said one evening. He laughed. "Me?" They'd laugh me off stage, but she just smiled that same patient smile. You never know who's waiting to hear your song. And so, weeks later, with his heart pounding and his guitar slung across his back, Eli took a bus to the city for open auditions. The bus ticket was paid for by Mrs. Diaz, money she could barely afford. When he protested, she said simply, "If your father could see you now, he'd want you to go. Don't sing for the judges. Sing for the one who taught you how to." That was the day everything began to change. The long line outside the studio, the cameras, the noise, it all blurred together. Eli almost turned back twice, but then he saw a father helping his little girl tie her shoe. That small, simple act reminded him why he came. By the time he stood on that grand stage, guitar in hand, the rest of the world didn't exist. It was just him, the song, and the echo of a promise made long ago, to sing for the truth inside his heart. And that's exactly what he did. The gold confetti still shimmered in the air like tiny pieces of heaven, but Eli could barely see them through his tears. The stage lights blurred into halos. The crowd's cheers turned into a heartbeat pounding inside his chest. For a moment, he thought he was dreaming, that maybe he'd fallen asleep again on that old park bench, and this was all in his head. But when the host rushed onto the stage, laughing and crying at the same time, and hugged him so tight he almost dropped his guitar, Eli knew it was real. The golden buzzer wasn't just a button. It was a bridge between everything he had lost and everything he was about to gain. Backstage, the producers surrounded him with cameras, asking how it felt, but Eli couldn't find words. He just kept whispering, "Thank you, Dad, thank you." Somewhere deep inside, he could almost hear his father laughing, that warm, proud laugh that once filled their tiny kitchen. When the episode aired a week later, something magical happened. Millions of people watched the boy in oversized shoes sing an old classic with a voice full of pain and beauty. The internet exploded with comments, reactions, and tears. "This is what music is supposed to be," one person wrote. "He made me call my dad after 10 years, wrote another. For every view, there was a story of healing, forgiveness, love reborn through a song. But what the cameras didn't show was that same night, Eli took a cab straight back to Mrs. Diaz's little house. He burst through the door with a laugh and a cry tangled together, holding up a handful of the golden confetti he'd picked from the stage floor. She looked up from her chair, her old eyes glistening, and whispered, "I told you the world needed to hear your song." He dropped to his knees beside her, hugging her like the grandmother he never had. "I couldn't have done it without you," he said. She smiled faintly and replied, "You just reminded people what it means to feel." Weeks turned into months. Eli was invited to perform on talk shows, interviews, even charity concerts. But he never forgot where he came from. He didn't chase fame. He used it to give back. With his first paycheck, he repaired the old auto shop where his father once worked and turned it into a community music center for kids who couldn't afford lessons. He called it Jack's Garage, and on its faded red door, he painted the words his father always said, "Keep a melody in your heart." One afternoon, during a small event at Jack's Garage, Eli stood in front of a group of kids holding mismatched guitars. He smiled as they tried to find their rhythm. Among them was a quiet boy with a shy voice, just like he once was. Eli knelt beside him and helped adjust his fingers on the strings. "It's okay if you mess up," he said softly. "Just keep playing. Music doesn't judge." The boy looked up and asked, "Did you ever mess up?" Eli chuckled. "Every day. But that's how I learned to sing from my soul." That evening, as the sun dipped below the rooftops and the children's laughter filled the air, Eli looked up at the sky. The golden light touched everything. The guitars, the cracked pavement, his own heart. He took out his old guitar, the same one he'd carried through every storm, and began to play Hotel California again. But this time it wasn't a song of loss. It was a song of gratitude for his father, for Mrs. Diaz, for everyone who believed in something they couldn't yet see. The music floated out into the street, carried by the wind. Strangers walking by paused, listening. Some smiled, some wiped their eyes, and some just stood there, remembering someone they'd once loved. And as Eli played the final line, "You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave," he realized what those words truly meant. You can move on, you can grow, you can change, but the people who loved you, the lessons that shaped you, they never leave. They become your song. That night, Eli didn't dream of stages or lights. He dreamed of his father's voice humming softly beside him, Mrs. Diaz laughing in the kitchen, and a world where one small act of kindness could echo forever. Because sometimes, the greatest performances aren't the ones that win trophies. They're the ones that remind humanity how to feel again. And somewhere, in a small town where the stars still shine over an old red door that reads, "Keep a melody in your heart," a boy once forgotten by the world continues to sing. Not for fame, not for applause, but for the love that never truly leaves.